And without further ado, I'll introduce the event. Again, my name is Elizabeth Larison. I'm a member curator of Don't Delete Art, and I'm the Director of Arts and Culture Advocacy at the National Coalition Against Censorship in the US. As you already know, if you follow Don't Delete Art, it's an initiative focused on defending artistic freedom online, and we're backed by the National Coalition Against Censorship, Artists at Risk Connection, and Free Muse, along with the artist activists Emma Shapiro, Savannah Spirit, and Spencer Tunick. In March, we launched Free the Nipple by Don't Delete Art, which is a 2-month takeover collaboration with the global advocacy project Free the Nipple to support and empower artists facing censorship online for depicting female-presenting nipples in their work. This 2-month initiative is multifaceted. Hopefully you've already seen some of it on our Instagram, but it spotlights artworks that stand to be censored because of social media's prohibition on female-presenting nipples. And we also have a timeline of how activists have moved the needle to make the internet more inclusive. And in addition to today's talk about the breasts throughout art history, we'll have in a few weeks journalist activist Soraya Chemali and the internet studies scholar Sophia Unoble talking about the ways in which digital culture intersects with female presenting bodies and nipple politics. And at the end of April, we'll have a legal explainer with NCAC's own executive director, Lee Rowland, and counsel, Erica Sanders, discussing justice, the law, and gender-based censorship in art online. Truly, there's so much more in addition to this, so please check it out. You can see how you can get involved. Visit our website at don'tdelete.art and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky. With that, thank you, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Minji.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Hello, everyone. My name is Minji Lee, and I'm a program associate for arts and culture advocacy at the National Coalition Against Censorship. I'm very pleased to welcome you to today's event, Breasts Throughout Our History, Symbolism to Censorship. Before we get started, I want to briefly reflect on why this topic still feels very relevant today. Even in 2026, we continue to live with contradictions around the human body, especially the female body. Breasts are highly visible across visual culture, in advertising, social media, entertainment, art, yet they're still frequently censored, regulated, tabooed, and politicized. The same image can be considered art, education, obscenity, or even illegal depending on the context, the platform, the geographic location, and who is viewing it. Our history offers a particularly powerful lens through which to examine these questions because artists have been depicting and reinterpreting the human body for centuries. The meaning of the breast in art has never been fixed. It has symbolized fertility, motherhood, sexuality, power, vulnerability, resistance, illness, and care. Looking at these images across time help us understand that what we consider appropriate or inappropriate is not natural or universal, but historically, socially, and culturally constructed. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce Carolina Pasti. Carolina is a curator and art historian based in Milan and Paris. In 2024, she curated the breast exhibition at the historic Palazzo Franchetti during the Venice Biennial with over 65,000 visitors seeing the show. The exhibition showcased the diverse works of emerging and established artists from around the world, spanning the realms of painting, sculpture, photography, and film. With that, I'm excited to turn the floor over to Carolina, whose research invites us to see breasts in art, not just as images, but as powerful cultural and political symbols.
Thank you so much for this introduction, Minjli, and thank you so much for this invitation to participate. It's a great actually honor and it's a great platform for me today to be here to present to you this wonderful talk where I'll be explaining how breasts have been the symbolism and the representation of breasts has changed throughout history. Before I start with this walkthrough throughout the exhibition, I would like to say why breast, why I put together this exhibition, which I curated and also I produced and conceived in 2024 during the Venice Biennale at the ACP Palazzo Franchetti, where we received way more visitors than we expected. 65,000 visitors came. Giving this, I would like to say why breast. So breast was inspired to me from an artist, Laura Panno, who actually had in the show 4 works. I once visited her studio in Milano, and she had this wonderful glass piece in the shape of a nipple. So my research and my idea, I thought, okay, breasts have been always represented throughout history, but I haven't seen shows in exhibitions in my whole entire career as an art historian, art curator. So I had this idea of actually portraying and presenting more than 31 artists, international artists, not only Italian, in Venice, and is emerging artists, not only emerging artists, but also established artists. So there were big names like Cindy Sherman, Duchamp, De Chirico, so more classical and more important artists throughout contemporary. And also I decided to commission to some artists, such as Seniqua Crawford and Chloe Wise, images that depicted breasts with the theme of breast. So why breast? Also, another reason was that I, in my personal life and in my family, in my family history, there has been breast cancer. So I decided also to present this topic in a way that emphasized also illness. So not only from a beauty perspective, but also focusing on themes such as motherhood, breast cancer awareness, breastfeeding, and empowerment. So I'll start now by presenting my show. My research starts from the Madonna lactans. So you see in the medieval ages how the symbolism of the Madonna, you can actually move, if you want, Elizabeth, forward to the next slide here. So you see that from the ancient era, we have the Venus of Willendorf with the exaggerated breasts, symbol of fertility and also beauty, in contrast with the Madonna lactans, where I actually decided to start my research from. And it was fundamental to include this beautiful painting by Bernardino de Signoraccio. In the painting, you see the Madonna of humility. So she's breastfeeding, so the symbol becomes extremely important. The breastfeeding of the nurturing Madonna, the Virgin Mary, that's actually not in the throne, but she's actually as if she was together with the rest of the women, so standing on the floor, set on a beautiful background, Quattrocento, with a golden panel. So the first room, if you want to, Elizabeth, go forward. So you see the beautiful iconography of the Madonna breastfeeding, Madonna lactans. And this is actually this first painting. You can see it in the first room of the exhibition, in which I presented works that were both historical and classical in dialogue with more contemporary pieces. So I decided to have the Madonna at the center in the room, in dialogue also with more contemporary artworks, such as, we can proceed, Elizabeth, such as Cindy Sherman, with one of the 35 history portraits. In this in particular, if you want to move to the Cindy Sherman's portrait, this is the entrance, actually, the corridor, this one, the next one, actually. Here we have the Fornarina, the Cindy Sherman, in which this photographs, this is it impersonates herself in the painting, in the photograph, and she actually associates herself and to the Fornarina by Raffaello. In this particular photograph, you can see where actually she distorts reality, and actually she wants to focus on the breasts. In this case, we have this prosthetic breast. So this image, which is artificial, it's fake, and she wants to emphasize actually this idea of identity, of portraiture, of let's say a painting, a portrait that was like standardized, which was fake and artificial. So was one of the themes of my research, was the fact that not only we saw in the exhibition beautiful portraits of medieval Renaissance, but also images, more provoking images like Cindy Sherman. And then in the next slide, Elizabeth, you can show how this dialogue with Anna Weyand, here you have a more contemporary, even more emerging artist, where she shows, in this painting, she shows this beautiful oil on canvas, the Venus, it's very assembling of the Venus Pudica, where you have this like more sculptural sense, their softness, but still very classical. So I was very fascinated by all these images of breast that are very similar to the gesture of the medieval, so very soft, very refined. We also have in this room the Chirico, but also with more stronger and more provocative images. In this case, we have the image of Cindy Sherman, photograph of Cindy Sherman with these fake elements that create, a standardized and very much artificial image. And the next room, so each room of this exhibition had a theme, starting from this room, which is more connected to the history, the classical gestures, and also to artists that were also inspired by classicism, like, for example, Anna Weyand, Richard Dupont, but also artists like Taniqua Crawford, contemporary artists, in which they depict their own breast in dialogue also with nature. So the symbol of almost the nature, the landscape. The artist Taniqua Crawford is South African, so has this connection to also her own body being reflected and being disembodied in the painting. In the next room, I also presented, you'll see later on in a video, this is the photography room, as well as previously I presented a room where, I don't know if some of you saw the exhibition, with some sculptural and smaller objects, and objects that are also very symbol of resilience, like Prunuri's, that I'll show you afterwards, egg, symbol of resilience and her battle against breast cancer. In this room, you see only photographs by male photographers. So for me, it was extremely important to present both the female and male perspective on breast. So in this case, we have Lacking Obungawo, also international artists, and who represent their own culture and their own society. So I think you'll see in every room, there's really much of a theme, much of like a focus on. And in this case, you have the focus on the nipples, but also nipples that are being covered. So again, a connection to censorship. For example, in this image, if you move to the next slide, Elizabeth, we have the image of, in this case, the shift and how breasts also are connected. In this image, we have Hans Fehr, a photographer who recently passed away, but we have this very pictorial image of a body which wants to be really self-confident and strong. And then in the next slide, we have Lacking of Bungao. So this is actually an image that really struck me because the women are covering their own face. He also resembles and has many connections to the photography in Nigeria, and a Nigerian photographer of fashion photography in the studio. So you have a perfection of the bodies, very sculptural, beautiful bodies, but they're covering their face. The nipples as well, here again, you have the nipples covered. So he also wants to emphasize this idea of censorship. And this, we'll discuss about it later, was one of the images that was, you can see it's, the nipples are covered and you can see the nipples here, but they were still censored when I presented the show through my Instagram channel. So this is quite interesting to see how like the system and the algorithm works, because other images where the nipple was showing have never been censored. So I was very intrigued by how and the way, you know, things act and how they're presented and how they're displayed. But this image really struck me, and I like the fact also they are covering their own face as if they were almost protecting their own body. In the next slide, also, I presented one of the most, I think, striking images for me that I showed and depicted in the breast exhibition, which is an image by Italian photographer Oliviero Toscani, with whom I was actually very close to. And I worked with him on this. Unfortunately, he was ill and he recently passed away, but he was very generous to lend this picture for the exhibition. And we have one of the most, I think, provoking images of the show. In this image, which was a campaign for the Benetton campaign in 1989, we have an image which is, I think, very, it represents a taboo. It represents, at the same time, he wanted to represent a reality more than an image that was selling a product. So again, connected to taboos, again, connected to censorship. And I think I was very interested to see the reaction of the public and the audience during the breast exhibition. I gave many tours throughout the show, and I saw actually still people wondering why the image was there and why I still felt a bit of, you know, realization, a bit of almost like people not wanting to see the image. But that's exactly what the artist and the photographer, the photographer wanted to portray. The other images in this photography room represent also the softness of the breast, like images by Mapplethorpe, as well as Penn and more. This is the last room, but I wanted to focus again in the photography room. You'll see later in the video, there's also images by, for example, Philip Garner, where he's showing the nipple, the breast of his wife. So breast more seen in a soft way, but he wanted to emphasize this idea of freedom and also connected to topless in France in the 70s. So also how we can discuss this later, how nowadays things have changed regarding topless, and how both in France, that was in Saint-Tropez in the 70s, but also in Italy, I'm Italian, has you don't see anymore many women at the beach. So it's also the shift of that, the shift of how women are also more scared of showing their own bodies and their own breast, bare breast. The last room in the exhibition is connected more to a theme of disembodiment, this deconstruction, and the body. It's very pop. So I wanted to present a show that wasn't not only the history of the breast, starting from the Madonna lactans throughout more contemporary artists, but also I wanted to present breast, the image of breast, not in a crude way, but in a way that was also uplifting, let's say playful and colorful. And in this room, for example, we have this sculpture by Charlotte Colbert that I think was one of the image sculptures, again, that the audience, around which the audience actually was more fascinated by, because you can see the scars in this sculpture, where a plaster sculpture by Charlotte Colbert, and the scars she wants to present in the way the illness, but in a playful way. So I had many women coming to the show that had breast cancer awareness, that were were uplifted by this sculpture. And this is what also breasts are about. And it's about freedom, and it's about also battling against breast cancer, but in a way which is more joyful, rather than crude images, rather than showing and seeing images that are also disturbing. So this room, again, is more pop, more colorful. There's also a beautiful painting by Laure Provost, in which you can see the breasts disembodied, and also they become symbol of empowerment. So this also, again, is very strong. I would like to read a passage from my book that I publish, also again with part of the sales of the book will be donated to Fondazione Io Monzino against breast cancer awareness. And you see in this passage is connected to this sculpture by Charlotte Colbert. And she says, breasts are scary, erotic, nurturing, weird, compelling, sensual, afflicted, sore, delicious. They belong to us and don't at the same time. They evolved and change. They hurt, they seep, they pleasure. They perk, they droop. They can be reinvented. They scar, they heal, they kill, they comfort. This piece is a nod to their familiar otherness and Amazon-like combativeness. So it's about, I think, breast really of the symbolism, the power that breasts can have actually in society. And it's about also how breast and how throughout history we see this enormous shift of the symbolism, and how actually breasts are becoming like a tool to express also our freedom. But at the same time, we see this contrast with the censorship of breasts throughout social media, throughout connected to also the free the nipple movement. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to present the show, because I wanted to start debates around themes that are often, neglected, and also to emphasize the power that breasts have, and all connected to these very important themes. So I wanted again to thank you, Elizabeth and Minji, for this talk, and throughout presenting my show, which it was during the Venice Biennale, and I hope actually to bring to the US and to maybe other countries, presenting also not only sculptures, paintings, videos, but also performances, and way more talks and debates around these themes. This is the show.
Who was the artist who did those lights?
This is I commissioned Studio Buchanan in London to commission the lamps. And this is the first room where we have the artists that I mentioned, Taniqua Crawford, Richard DuPont, Laura Panno, who was my inspiration for the show. Cher Levine. So we have Duchamp here. And also objects that become very playful and like this collaboration and also Dali, where breaths become surreal. This is the last of Alan Jones sculpture, very also again another one of the most provocative images, and Chloe Wise, Charlotte Colbert. Aurora Pellizzi in dialogue with Lord Provost. Laura Panno. And then in the last room, this is connected to Leo Monzino. There was also a video in the show by Lord Provost. Okay, I'll stop sharing.
It's so nice to see the video taking through the space and seeing how all the works kind of come together.
See the connection and also the dialogue, and how actually historical works are extremely important to understand the more contemporary and established, emerging and both established artists.
Thank you, Carolina, for your presentation. We have a couple of questions we prepared, but feel free to add any comments or questions in the chat box, so we can go through and discuss further. So the first question that we had for you, Carolina, was as a curator, we were wondering what challenges do you face when presenting works that depict breast, given lingering taboo or institutional restriction? Or what's the most challenging part of researching something that's often censored or overlooked in our history?
Yes, so it was definitely a challenge to present the show, because I had to also select the right location, giving the Biennale, being such a strong and global event. I had many institutions and many actually locations in Venice weren't so keen to present this exhibition and this topic. And then I finally found and decided to present it at Palazzo Franchetti, which is right next to Accademia. So for me, it was fundamental to present and show all the artists in a context, in a location at the center of Venice. So it had a stronger audience. We had, as I said, 65,000 visitors. And the challenge, I think the most extreme challenge was to select which images to show. And for me, it was extremely important to start my research from a classical figure, in this case by Bernardino de Signoraccio, and for each Rome have a dialogue between the artists, such as Cindy Sherman with the Chirico, or with a more contemporary artist such as Anna Weyand. I saw that some exhibitions on breast had been presented previously, but they were only focusing on contemporary artists, not the history of all of the breast and the symbolism of the breast. And what I found extremely challenging as well was that after opening my show, I didn't have, I had many interviews with journalists who asked me if I was comfortable to show the breast in a palazzo, the breast exhibition in a palazzo, where in which there was also the Qatari actually pavilion above the breast show. So if I had actually this fear of this feeling of the exhibition not being culturally sensitive, which was quite striking for me. And actually, I never had a dialogue with the Qatari pavilion, and they weren't happy about my show. So this is, I think, a debate that we can open. But I continue my show, and it was actually my in my idea and my knowledge to decide, not to stop the show because of another pavilion being against me. So of course the show continued, but I had lots of people from the Qatari pavilion not very pleased about it. So this was, I think, a very strong challenge for me.
Thanks for sharing that. You talked about this briefly during your presentation, but in terms of audience responses, in the previous breast exhibition, have you noticed any differences in how male audience versus female audiences respond to depiction of breast in art, in the exhibition in general? Just curious how you observed.
Yes, I think I had many male visitors that were very interested by the topic, but they weren't very challenged, very ready to answer questions about it. During the tours I gave to many different groups, male were always a bit reluctant to reply to questions on this topic. And they were, I would say, quite afraid or shy to talk about it. So I didn't have much responses about it during the exhibition. So yes, I think it was definitely more received by a female audience.
Elizabeth, do you have any other questions you want to add?
Yeah, thanks, Minji, and thanks, Carolina. I'm curious, Carolina, in your research of the topic, obviously you've probably looked at hundreds more pieces of artwork across different eras and locations. And I'm curious how you see changing or maybe culturally specific societal norms affecting the way breasts are viewed. But I'm thinking more specifically, at least where I am in the United States, thinking about how we're seeing, broadly speaking, greater emphasis on things like body positivity, gender fluidity. How is this impacting how you think breasts are viewed in art?
No, I mean, I think it's extremely impacted, and I think there's as I said, there was in the last years an enormous shift of how breasts are perceived and are represented. And I think there's also, let's say, a contrast, and here we can start a debate on censorship, because breasts, you can see more images of breasts being depicted, and I feel there's more freedom and representation, but at the same time, through social media, this is not allowed, and this is all connected to a system of power, in which we can't really control, and we can really like go against, because it's under, we don't really have the power. So this is what scares me, I think. The not being controlled by a more vast system, being controlled by a huge algorithm, and then also in AI. So how will AI, the future, how will they act as a change? Where there'll be the change? Is there going to be a change? Will things remain like this? I hope not. If the algorithm can't distinguish between what's an art and a beautiful image, between that and pornography, I mean, it's a real debate, a real question that I always interrogate myself. And but at the same time, if AI can't distinguish this, maybe we also have power as human beings to classify what's beautiful and what's not beautiful. I think in this, if AI doesn't have this power, I think the human being has definitely a stronger power in this sense.
Absolutely. Something that we bring up a lot and Don't Delete Art is that, with exhibitions like yours and with the artworks that are showcased in the Free the Nipple by Don't Delete Art collaboration, we try to highlight all the work that stands to be removed or forbidden online simply because it includes a female appearing breast, and really gets you thinking about that sort of power inequality and the presumption of sexual context, and the vilification of sexual context, even when there is, those suggestions there. And that's exactly something that we're always pushing back against, thinking about trying to advocate for ways for social media companies to include a consideration for artistic context in their content moderation schemes. And sometimes we get asked, what does that mean? And there are many ways we can define or not define art. That's always been a central question to it throughout history. But
Yeah.
I also sort of think that social media companies have enough resources to develop that themselves, and with all the data they collect, figure out some data terms that might indicate something with art. I had one follow-up question to that, which is online or offline examples in art. Do you see any ways in which, we talk about how culture sort of influences the circulation of art with breasts in it? Do you see any or can you think of maybe even works from the show, up to you, but works of art that have involving breasts that have pushed the needle on how society kind of considers their acceptability, or
Yes, I mean,
non-coded?
I mean, you see also in the show, for example, you see the image of Oliviero Toscani, and I think that is an image that shifted completely and provoked. And I think many mid-image or many photographers until then didn't use this powerful tool of photography to present a society and present and advocate against taboos. So I think if you think about it, the censorship in the end becomes the subject of the work, because I think it's of course it's a negative, and we have to advocate against censorship. But if you think it opens more dialogue around the theme, and it opens more dialogue about what is what can be seen, what can be shown, and what us as viewers want to see as well. So this is, for me, it's definitely one of the images that changed my way of seeing also art. And I've always worked with images that weren't maybe enough provocative. And I like also the image of and the sculpture of Charlotte Colbert, where she presents her own identity. The piece of art becomes her own way of showing her battle against, showing scars, showing illness. So also an art piece that becomes also for the public, not only and an image of heal, also a way to heal for the audience.
Another question I have, we've talked a bit about censorship of art and because of breasts. I'm wondering if there are any circumstances in which this is one of your questions, Carolina, I'm turning back to you, that you shared with us earlier on, is can censorship ever be productive or generative in art? Or do you think it always exists as a limitation?
I think most of the times it's no. But as I just said, it gives more spotlight on the artist, on the image that is being censored itself in a way. So there's a contradiction, but in a way, I think it could be in a way productive, and I think censorship the last also years of Frida Nipple, with the Frida Nipple movement and with other movements, I think there has been, I don't know if in social media, but I think publicly in museums, I think there has been more depiction of breasts in a way.
Something I would love to add to that.
I see, sorry, at art fairs, if you, in these last years, way more images being shown of breast. But that again, it's connected to, where can we show and where can breast, the image of breast can be seen at a museum and at an institution, but not online. Why is that? Why is again connecting it to the algorithm?
Something I would also love to share too, with the question of restrictions. There's in the gallery of I'll say like curated works that we have as part of the Free the Nipple by Don't Delete Art collaboration. You can see it on Don't Delete Art's website at don'tdelete.art. There are several artists that we chose for this or invited for this collaboration who don't use actual breasts, but they evoke breasts with like fruit, I think there might be some images of like oranges in a stocking that kind of evoke the shape of the breast and the nipple, and like sort of and I haven't interviewed these artists, to talk more about why their choice for that, but to me it seems I interpret that as a sort of creative limitation or a restriction that kind of like sparks sort of other creative outputs there, and which makes it more playful, more sometimes to the point, or offers an interesting comment on the prohibition or the taboo. But yeah, if you haven't seen some of these works, we're releasing them one by one each week, so you can again check those out on our website.
Great, thank you. I will review the works and perhaps interview the artist.
Should we turn to some more audience questions now? What do you think, Minji?
Yeah, I think that's great. Let's see.
How about Emma's question? I can go ahead and read it if you don't have it up.
Yep.
Okay. Um, the censorship of breasts often serves to continue their relegation as sexual objects, and as such, art about the breast is often responding to that in particular. What could we explore with breasts in art if we didn't have this obstacle?
Well, I think it's sorry, I missed the last part. I think the audio.
Um, so the censorship of breasts often serves to continue their relegation as sexual objects, and as such, art about the breast is so often responding to that sort of sexualization. The question asks, what might we explore with breasts in art if we didn't have this obstacle?
Well, I don't know. We can explore many other themes, but I mean, it's always I think it always goes back again to the history of the breast and how, the breast. It's also interesting how breasts change from idolized to more human. So in recent and contemporary artists, there's in modern times there's this big shift. Before there were breasts that wanted to be seen by male, and then there's a representation their of the artist being of their own body, of wanting to find again their freedom, I think, and wanting to being less, less constructed and less idolized, by wanting to be, seen by not by the male, but by in their own body.
Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing in the comments here too, thank you for that, Carolina. So many people have experienced censorship online and frustrations with that. Um, Another person commented more specifically, regardless of its consideration of being sexual or not, the deeper issue here is that social media is not consistent with their censorship. I couldn't agree more. Fully clothed models will get deleted as well, is sort of what they end their comment with. Any other primary questions? I think we've got through. There was another question about if you've noticed any difference in sort of like cultural permissiveness of breast, but I think you've kind of commented or alluded to that a bit. And when a question about online censorship, when you said it was the Toscani image that got censored on social media, or were other ones?
Yes, well, Toscani, as well as the photograph by Lacking Obungawo that didn't show.
Right.
But it was censored. So I definitely, like, many paintings of the show weren't censored. But I see also the difference between photography and painting also. So most of the paintings are not censored, but photography, images of nudes and breasts, are censored. So also this is, I think, interesting to see, like, if it's what kind of algorithm. I'm curious to also looking forward to the next talks with more experts on this specific the censorship and more on the algorithm, because those two particular images were really much censored, and this is also another reason why it was challenging for me to select the correct images, because I'm sure if I had presented more photography images, or more, like, I don't know, larger images of breast, they would have been more censored, I'm sure. So this is also, I had to find the right balance among the different rooms of images, not too let's say strong, but also, what's strong for me and what's strong for you. So this is another topic of discussion. But who defines what's acceptable and what's not acceptable? This was another question that I had, which is a larger system, and it's a larger organization
Yeah.
in the cloud.
Something else that hit the news this week was the censorship then of an image on Meta platforms of fine art photography of somebody who happened to be a supermodel 10 years ago, fully pregnant, fully naked, very like high contrast studio portrait, full body portrait. Um, and it's very much like it falls into the types of image that we would always defend, and don't delete art or try to uplift or give attention to, because that is something you would see in a museum. Why wouldn't you be able to see it online? But it's interesting to me that this is a photograph which doesn't have the same protections on Meta as painting and sculpture do, allegedly. The person is nude, which is, technically not allowed. It's not a protest image. It's not a breastfeeding image. These are all, I mention this because these are all of Meta's exceptions. But the image is restored. And so I'm wondering if there's now a pregnancy exception, but they don't list it. And of course, I wouldn't complain about this. I think there should be more exceptions for nudity. And obviously, this is art. But it just speaks to the inconsistencies and the guessing games that so many artists have to navigate as they think about this. But something that was brought up in one of our conversations with one of our future speakers, I think Soraya Chamali, mentioned that it's turning into a system in which breasts are only allowed on Instagram if there has been like a harm or like an imposition upon the apparent female subject's body, right? If she has had like a mastectomy, if she has had any other kind of surgeries, if she has had a pregnancy, if she there is something that has been done to her which now allows her to somehow be they have to make it up for that person. Is that consistent with some of the other things that you've been seeing?
No, absolutely. It's I agree. I mean, it's I think every image I see, it's sometimes I really don't understand which images can be portrayed on Instagram and which are not. It's a very difficult subject that you're analyzing very well, and you're focusing in your organization. I think in Italy, I think you're the strongest one. They don't talk enough about it, I think. So this is another reason why maybe there should be also more organizations like you around globally, because I think also it's in many other countries. There's always a different way of how you portray the breast and social media and culturally, and it's a cultural way also connected to mainly culture.
And then that way, do you see that? Oh, sorry, Benji, please.
No, Caroline, I just was curious. You mentioned that you're planning to bring the show to the States, hopefully, but otherwise, I was curious how you are planning to develop your research or, like work of art that you already show in the exhibition. Like, just curious, how are you planning to develop or?
So I'm focusing on bringing the show in the US, but at the same time, I will probably launch a podcast connected to these themes that I analyze in my show, as well as one of the episodes will be about censorship. So this is my next project, my next research. So I will definitely keep you in mind and keep the censorship topic in mind.
That's really exciting.
That's very.
Yeah, we look forward to all tuning in, and as Emma in the chat says, we'll definitely look forward to highlighting it and being active listeners. All right. Any final questions?
I was reading as well. There any?
It's always so hard to keep up with all of the chats and also think about guiding the conversation here. I know there was I'm just trying to also look real quick back to your questions, Carolina, if there's any that would be. How has the experience with the breast exhibition had an effect for you as an art lover and curator in general? Thanks for that, Emma.
Thank you. Yes, it's definitely change my actually feeling of also my own body, and I've experienced. I talked a lot about with some artists who were shown and in the show in the exhibition, that there's their approach and their also how they felt they definitely felt more comfortable in their own bodies, and they felt more self-confident, I think. And I think it's it's very much for me, it was very much I think liberating and about, and also at the same time provoking, and to see how when you present a show with this specific topic, which is unconventional, it's very much, as I said, about different themes from censorship to cancer awareness to empowerment. Um, you're very much, it's quite also frightening because you don't see how, you don't know how the public will react, and how the global also public, not the specific, not Italians, but Venice being Venice Biennale being such a strong and powerful like global platform, how do people will react to something like that? But in the end, it just opened more dialogues and debates around these themes. So I'm very actually pleased and by the outcome, and also by the response of many artists wanting to show more their art, I think, and opening more about also own. You know, this is what I say. Censorship can also be a way of more and more artists wanting to depict more their own, I think, body, and feel more reclaiming also their own body and their own also self, their freedom. I think it's a way of total freedom and also activism. So I think in a way it opened up more and more new paths, new ideas also of around these themes. So I'm very happy about this.
I'm just looking at one final question that has come in the chat, asking if you have any views about applying to exhibitions when your art questions censorship, coming from somebody who has exhibited in many erotic shows, but knows the values behind their art would be powerful beyond the fetish community.
Do you have any view about? I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, she's saying about erotic shows. I think I open even more my broaden my ideas about the theme. So I think why not? I think it gives you way more exposure about this topic and about this theme.
If I could also add to, it's a hard leap to make oftentimes, but I would root your work in other examples of art and contemporary art that have made that bridge. There are several artists, really notably, like Robert Mapplethorpe. I know Catherine Opie has some elements that play with that too. Understand maybe, or like, you know, root your work or connect it to other lineages that people might be able to understand or look for other themes for, because I think that also can be valuable. Because that's what I think the art world is looking for, more context and ways that they can justify or tell stories that are maybe buried into the work alongside or coexisting with the more overt themes that you mentioned, would be my comment on that. All right. Well, Carolina, thank you for such a rich presentation. Thank you for your work. And elevating other perspectives of the breast and why it's important in art. Any other final words, Minji?
No, thank you so much, Carolina. When we were planning for this event, I was very happy to find your exhibition and research online. Otherwise, I don't think I would have had the opportunity to plan this event. So we are very grateful for your openness to participate in this event.
Thank you so much.
Share your knowledge and experience.
Thank you again for this invitation, and I really look forward to the next talks about censorship. And
yeah, everybody mark your calendars for April 14th and 30th. Sorry to cut you off, Carolina.
Thank you so much again.
All right, take care, everybody. Don't delete art, free the nipple.